very dramatic situations, like floods in Germany that never happened in such magnitude, or the COVID pandemic that completely changed our lives over more or less two and a half years. And more recently, the war in Ukraine that is also changing completely, let's say, our everyday life and our real geopolitical situation. So, in order to approximate the need for changing to the citizens and also to involve the citizens in this change, the President of the European Commission launched by September 2020 this movement called the European Bauhaus. And as I said, thought not, let's say, this was launched because she thought that the transition shouldn't be just an economic or an environmental project, but actually it should be a new cultural project for Europe. And therefore, the European Bauhaus called for a collective effort to imagine and build a more sustainable, beautiful, and inclusive future for everyone. And these three principles, sustainability, beauty, and inclusiveness, are the three main pillars or the three main values of this initiative. That is not just concerned, let's say, with the climate change effects in our planet, but actually, let's say, it has a much more holistic vision that is very much concerned with all aspects that matter to the citizens and to our society, like those ones that are expressed in the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. And also to think and to assist and to follow this, how the movement is evolving in time, the European Commission set up this high-level roundtable that is, which I am part of, and I have the high-level roundtable is a group of individuals coming from different countries, from different generations, from different fields of expertise, in order to, let's say, discuss and exchange ideas about this, how the initiative should evolve over time. So, where, let's say, what is the main focus of this change, and what can we do to make that change happen? Of course, there's a lot of things that I could bring here, but let's say when we look at this graphic concerning the global CO2 emissions per sector, we can see here that the construction industry is responsible of about 40% of the global CO2 emissions. So immediately our industry, the industry that we belong as architects, is the major responsible for this problem related to climate change. And one of the most renowned climate scientists, John Schnellhuber, is one of the authors of the studies that conducted to this prediction of the 2 degrees Celsius as a maximum that we can attain to sustain the planet in a more or less stable condition. So he, who is a very prestigious climate scientist, doesn't hesitate to say that the elephant in the climate room is the construction industry. So he is very much concerned in changing and looking to dramatic changes in our industry. And if we look at this graphic here, that shows us two ways of looking into carbon emissions in our building environment. One is what we call embodied carbon, which is the emissions that were released in the materials and in the construction process of our buildings. And then we see here the operational carbon, which is the emissions that occur during the use of the building. What we see here is that in a 30 years time, let's say when the building is finished and people start living in, we have already emitted a huge amount of CO2 emissions, and that value is more or less the equivalent of the emissions that are released over 30 years of use. So we can be focused on changing, let's say, our electrical sources to renewable energy and other things to make the operational of our buildings cleaner. But actually, we have to focus very strongly in how we design and how we build our buildings, because this is where immediate change must take place. And just to give an example, if we look at a material like concrete, if concrete was a country, it would be the third largest emitter of CO2, only behind China and US. And just to give another number, to see that this is not an easy task, China used more concrete in 3 years than US used in the entire 20th century. So we are here, facing a real, I'm just looking at one material, but we have architects, designers, constructors, industrial companies. We have a major challenge to face in order to contribute for a more sustainable future. So, in short, the way we design our environment, built, and of course taking as a source of inspiration the original Bauhaus, that was a very influential school over the 20th century. And there are, of course, some things that we can be inspired and learn from the Bauhaus to follow, but of course there are also other things that we must do in a very different way. So let's say, looking into how this school that was founded almost 100 years ago can inspire our actions today, we can see that, like then, we should consider the technologies of our time to help us, but not just those emerging technologies. We should also look into traditional know-how and also traditional techniques and find efficient ways to combine. So we have today, as you know, building information technology, refactoring collaboration in our industry. We have technologies like the 3D printing that allow us to use only the material that is needed to produce these kind of structures. But we have also augmented reality technologies where we can expand manual and traditional crafts into the more complex and flexible conditions. But also other technologies that, let's say, are here today to be learned, to be explored, to be examined, and those technologies are part of the workshops that Igor is running. Is artificial intelligence, and we see artificial intelligence to think about some ideas, but also actually to consider and evaluate a myriad of possibilities when designing our buildings, following different criteria that can be environmental, can be economic, etc. But also, let's say, unlike in the Bauhaus time, that the new materials were concrete, steel, glass, and the new architecture should be made out of those materials, today our path is radically different. We should avoid those kind of materials because their ecological footprint is very, very, very negative, as I showed before with the concrete. So we should prioritize the use of materials that are existing already, or they are natural or biological, or also smart materials that can respond in a very intelligent and efficient way to different environmental conditions. So this is, let's say, the importance of materials and the trends that we should follow nowadays. The other thing is exactly to move from this idea of a linear economy where we build those buildings, we demolish them, and then we are always building new buildings, so extracting more materials, consuming more and more resources. And as we see here in the Pritzker Prize of last year's Lacaton in Basel, we have a perfect example of circular economy where a building got an addition that introduced a better life quality in that building, And so instead of demolishing and then produce a new building with that would of course cause a large amount of CO2 emissions, with this smaller intervention, this building could get a new use. It could, let's say, it could envision a new lifespan for its inhabitants. So this is also crucial, no? To think about circular ways of using materials and using the built environment. And another thing also is to, let's say, stop thinking in our buildings as individual and independent or autonomous objects, and think more and more about systems and about our buildings being part of larger systems. So when we see here this simulation of how the ventilation goes through the inside of this building and it affects the temperature, we see that our design has an effect and interacts with the environmental conditions outside. So therefore, the building is not an object that is simply placed in some spot in our planet, but actually it relates to this system, in this case environmental, that is around. And when we look at this picture here, we see these shading devices that block the light to enter directly inside of the spaces, in the interiors of the spaces. But at the same time, in the top part, they have these solar panels that can capture sunlight and transform it in electrical energy. So this is this kind of relationship between our buildings and the environment is something that should be also strengthened and further explored. But also, let's say, it's not just about thinking about systems. Maybe we could add to think about more than human ecosystems. So this change doesn't matter just human beings, but also the biodiversity that inhabits our planet. And so we have here two buildings, for two examples here, this bridge that allows humans to cross from one side to the other of this river also is the house or the home for bats that are an important part of the biodiversity in this area of Netherlands. And here, this is the roof of the Copenhagen building by the Architecture in Copenhagen, where this industrial building, by getting this garden roof, suddenly became also the space for vegetation and also to foster the birds population in this area. So let's say this idea that our buildings doesn't concern just its human inhabitants, but concern also and can foster the biodiversity around, they can be positive regarding the biodiversity, is also something that one should consider when we design something. Also, when we are designing, we may reconsider some strategies, like, for instance, designing for disassembly to promote circular economy and the reuse of materials, but also exploring nature-based solutions and looking into nature as a source of not just, let's say, visual inspiration, but actually as a functional and performative inspiration. We can learn a lot about natural systems and biological systems and find ways to biomimic those systems in our built environment. But also look for vernacular ways of building, because the vernacular history of architecture can teach us a lot about how we can take advantage of local conditions and also of the local knowledge and local experience that relate buildings with existing and local materials, but also with the specificities of the local climate in those places. So these are, let's say, some of the strategies that the European Bauhaus also encouraged to explore. And if we move away from the scale of the building, and we reach the scale of cities, here we have also another moment where we should divert from the principles that the Bauhaus launched over the 20th century, because 100 years ago, it was the moment where cars started to become produced and started to support the way we design cities. And so, let's say, all the modern movement and all the cities that were designed during that period consider transportation based on cars as a very important part to connect the different areas that architects and planners were designing. There was this idea of zoning the cities, of separating functions, but then connecting them with this way of transporting. But this, let's say, doesn't work anymore for us, and when we see this kind of pictures, with these parking lots, this doesn't make sense anymore. This is not a synonymous of modernity, of a progressive society, and so let's say the goal now is to reconsider our urban spaces based on the citizens, based on the nature that inhabits those places. And so we should move and we should reconsider mobility in other ways, not just based on cars, but based on more on other transportation systems. And so here we see an example in Barcelona. If you visit Barcelona these days, you'll see some construction work taking place there, because they are creating this grid of streets that are dedicated to pedestrians and also to plant some trees and vegetation in order to foster the meeting of people and a more sustainable and healthy way of living in the city. So the grid is being transformed in some axis to promote this kind of urban experience and not this one on the left. So this is something also to consider, but also again, we talk a lot about human-centric design, but actually, let's say we should aim at thinking in broader terms and think about also other forms of life. And so when we see on the left this bridge here over this highway, this bridge is not made for people. This was made to allow animals to cross this highway from one side to the other and thus protect and enhance biodiversity in this area. So we should think also beyond human beings. And here is a small project by Bjarke Ingels again. It's an hotel in Sweden where these rooms are covered with these boxes that actually are the houses for birds. And so again, let's say these elements are connected with nature, but at the same time they foster the natural environment and the biodiversity environment around it. So this is something that, let's say, we should have this ambition to aim at. If we want to resume a little bit what all these comments that I made are looking for, I could say that the goal is to reconnect with nature. These two architects here, Matti Putinen is a Finnish architect. He very clearly summarizes this and our present situation, saying that we must make peace with nature. So it's not about building on top of nature, it's not building against nature, but it's building with nature and with a positive effect on nature. And Vicente Guallard also connects these two conditions, saying that the future of cities is the future of forests. In other words, let's say it doesn't matter for us to build and build and build more and more and more if we also don't care about the natural environment, because this will take us to the catastrophe that I was talking in the beginning. So we must care about nature, we must care about our forests, and we have to find ways to connect them in a positive alliance. And so, trying to do that, we read in the newspaper, we see in the use a lot of concepts and ideas that are eco, that are green, that are smart. I think everyone already heard about this project in Saudi Arabia, about this, I don't know, it says a lot of a length of several kilometers and 500 meters high, and they claim that this is a sustainable building, you know? And then we have these visionary buildings that are mixed with greenery, and then we have these dashboards that today support the management and the planning of our cities. So these are three words that are kind of in everyday newspaper and then in our everyday discussion. But in a certain sense, these are different from the Bauhaus period, but at the same time, they look a little bit like if we were back those times, because these are kind of top-down approaches to the design of our cities, no? And we can, let's say, we should question, we should look at these ideas, but with a critical eye, because at some point this can become also a new manifestation of a modernist approach to cities that we already know that it was not very successful, and we are trying to change it a little, looking maybe for more bottom-up, more participative ways of designing and imagining the future of our cities. So this is something, let's say, to have in our minds when we look into the several initiatives that sometimes appear in the cover of our newspapers, but let's say we should look much better on those proposals, because sometimes we see things like this, no? We see the waste of these renewable systems that everyone wants to put everywhere. We see these, let's say, nature-based cities here that couldn't be inhabited because the plague of mosquitoes appeared and people couldn't not stand them, and so these became empty buildings. And then we also see, you know, we tend to see that we tend to understand or to think that this digital dimension of our everyday life is a kind of a virtual and ethereal one, but actually it is supported by massive constructions like these huge data centers that consume a lot of energy and that most of the times are built away from our eyes. So let's say we should be, what I'm saying is to keep some critical eye in order to move into eco, into green, into smarter environment, but in a very sustainable, in a very consistent and efficient way. So, in two words, reconnecting with nature requires a cultural change. You know? It requires that we change the way we think, the way we design, the way we build in a very holistic way. So we need a cultural change. And this is what the European Bauhaus tries to promote. And to do that, it tries to engage with everybody, so everyone can participate in this movement. And how? Let me show you this slide here to quickly draft here some of the ideas. The European Bauhaus consists in three phases. The first one was already done and was mostly made out of discussions that were spontaneously organized by anyone that wanted to do a conference, that wanted to do a meeting to discuss what the European Bauhaus could be. And in the end of this phase, there were a lot of contributions, there were a lot of ideas and thoughts that the European Union collected, and with those thoughts, they designed a series of initiatives that are still ongoing, that are still being designed, some new ones over time. And this is what they call the delivery phase. So this is where things should start to appear in front of us. No? And so this delivery phase where we are now, you can find calls to funding projects. And so in the website of the European Bauhaus here, you can get access to these goals. And so in consortiums with different countries, you can apply to it. Also, there is what they call the net labs. So if anyone in a group, in a consortium, develops some idea of a project that can transform some place, that can transform some technology, that can, let's say, transform a community or empower a community, they can propose this project with a timeline, with a set of goals. They can propose to the European Bauhaus, and if they find it an interesting project, they can recognize it as an European Bauhaus lab. It's that they don't support financially the labs, but they give recognition, and with that recognition, they can get access to other partners that might be able to support those initiatives. Those partners are what they call the friends. And then you have also every year the net prizes with different categories where you can submit your project according to the different categories and get these awards, and also the festival where conferences, demonstrations, exhibitions take place. Partners and friends are, let's say, ways of getting associated to the movement. Partners are non-profit associations, organizations, while friends are for-profit organizations. Everything here is explained and can be accessible through the website, so I strongly recommend you to copy this link or to Google it and spend a little time to explore it. And also each country in Europe has these national contact points that can be reached in order to get more information. So in order to conclude this, I'm going to bring here a few projects or actions that are occurring and that you can also explore. One idea or one of these actions are the prizes. This is just for you the 2021 and 2022 categories. So you see that they cover very different range of goals, and also very different scales of actions, from materials to neighborhoods. So you can, through the European Bauhaus website, you can get to the prizes, and then you can explore all the submissions that were selected for each category. And these are some of them. So actions that are looking, for instance, here to the beaches, and also to improve the dune systems, but using children and educating children to be aware and to raise the consciousness about our environment. So this is very important, not to target different generations, different fields of expertise. Also, let's say, empower communities, in order to create common spaces related to nature or to inhabit existing buildings and give new uses, or for instance here to explore roofs as gardens that can foster biodiversity, social interaction, and also self-sufficiency for the inhabitants of this building. So let's say you can explore in those, visiting those the website of the prizes. You can get access to a lot of information on projects like this. This one is a community in Seville, where made out of people from different regions in the planet, from immigrants, and they were invited to plant some species for their countries, and suddenly this became a place where new birds started to pop up because of these species, but also the citizens became somehow represented here, and this fostered also the social interaction between them and the sense of proudness. So there are small things, also bigger things, larger things, like buildings that try to be affordable, inclusive, and built with natural materials like timber. Also buildings that are thought for people with, in this case, for instance, with health, let's say with health problems like dementia and stroke-related disabilities. So let's say we have to take care of everybody. This is the idea of inclusivity. Not just affordability, but also thinking about everyone in any age, but also technology. Technology is also, as I said, a very important part, can be a very important part of the solution. This is a system based on blockchain developed by a company in Portugal that tries to gamify the use of bikes and clean ways of transportation by giving credits to the people that use those ways of transportation instead of cars. So by gamifying these choices, then it can accelerate and it can foster this transition towards more cleaner ways of transportation. Another important, let's say, projects of the European Bauhaus are what they call the lighthouse projects. In the beginning, they were thinking about 5, but now there's a 6th one that a few weeks later they decided to add the 6th one, which is the Bauhaus of the Sea that you see here. These are really big projects funded with 5 million euros that aim at producing real and tangible change in the cities where they are based in, but also they must have the capacity to be replicated in other countries if someone wants to follow that kind of ideas and principles. So you can also get access to these 5, 6 lighthouse projects that, as you see here, involve a lot of different countries, so they are spread over Europe. And also the NEB labs that I already mentioned before. You have some labs that are led by the European Bauhaus, so the team of the European Bauhaus identifies specific tasks that should be explored over time, but also there are other labs that are recognized from the community and promoted by the community. This is one of them that joins 5, 6 countries in Europe, and that is now in a moment where they are expanding toward other countries, and it's called NEBOSAL. It's an academic project that tries to learn and exchange ideas between the countries that, let's say, are in the southern part of Europe, because climate in the south is different from the north, resources are also different, the economic situation are also different. So despite our goals and our challenges are common, the way to face and to respond should be specific. So the answers here are totally different from the answers in the north of Europe, and this consortium, this network, tries to identify how southern problems should be responded in architecture and in education. So this is an educational project that tries to change the curriculum to capacity the students and future professionals to face these goals. And almost concluding, the NEB Compass. This is something that was developed by these NEB labs promoted by the European Bauhaus. This is a way of assessing the different projects in terms of the European Bauhaus principles. So there is this compass here with these areas that have different topics, and if you want to learn more about this, then this is a kind of a measurement device where you can look into a project and see how much it is from the participatory point of view, or from the transdisciplinarity regarding the beauty or the sustainability or the inclusiveness. So this is a kind of a tool to access, to measure, to have an idea if our projects are, let's say, more or less going in the direction that the European Bauhaus thinks that is important to go. And finally, there is also something that started very recently. It's not yet implemented. It's still being discussed, but should be implemented very soon, which is called the European Bauhaus Academy, where different training models and information will be available in a platform to empower all parts of the construction chain in order to be able to perform the transformation that needs to take place. So they are identifying contents, like bio-based materials. How can we build with timber? What kind of legislation should be changed to frame these new ways of designing and building? And so this everything will be, let's say, identified, will be discussed, educational tools and models will be placed online, so everyone can, let's say, empower, can learn, and all together can could perform in a bottom-up fashion, let's say, the change that needs to take place. Okay. So this is the last one, which is very much related with the current situation in Ukraine. One very interesting thing is that when the war started, the invasion started, there were a lot of refugees flooding the countries around Ukraine, and quickly Shigeru Ban entered into action, and with the Polish architect U.Porto, they set up a kind of a movement to produce with cardboard structures these modules inside of the different pavilions, train stations, etc., to, let's say, to host the refugees and setting up more private situations for these temporary shelters. And nowadays this was a response, an immediate response that the European Bauhaus was able to trigger, but now there is a specific program of actions at different levels related with how to rebuild Ukraine. And this is an action that is not the European Bauhaus saying how it should be done. It's an action done with Ukraine organizations in order to empower them and to understand from them also how it should be happen and how the European Bauhaus can help that to happen. And so, let's say, I hope with these few projects and actions to have transmitted an idea of the landscape of different initiatives that are taking place, and that I hope everyone, let's say, can participate and can check them. And again, this is not a change that, let's say, just needs to take place in Europe. We know that if we change, let's say, if Europe becomes much more greener, it's nice, but it won't solve the planetary crisis. So, let's say, I hope this can inspire other regions, but also we can learn also from how other regions can react to this climate emergency, and the planet altogether can respond collectively to assure that our future is sustainable and livable. So thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, José Pedro. It was very inspiring. I don't think we have much time to open for questions and answers. Let me know if you still have like some minutes.
Okay.
But
10 minutes.
Okay, thank you so much. If anyone in the audience would like to ask, you can feel free to ask in Portuguese. If you are not comfortable speaking English, writing in the chat or the YouTube channel, we are available to hear from you. And let's be a little bit quick with it. No? Well, I have a question for my part. I would like to ask Professor José Pedro for his opinion. Oh, let's have Christina. Thank you, Christina, so much for your participation.
No, I just want to know if the presentation was hard because it was so late that evening, so I don't know if it's recorded.
Well, we're having like a gente está fazendo a transmissão ao vivo e ela vai ficar gravada no YouTube, Cristina. Tá? Só pra
Okay, thank you so much. And I And some questions later.
Tá bem. Vou olhar. But I would like to ask a question. I think it's an important question for everyone present. I would like to know Professor José Pedro's opinion about the use of this digital technology, such as AI, in the contemporary context that demands this sustainability, inclusiveness, these principles of NEB, right? And considering all these urgent matters expected for this ever-changing world that we live in, what are the concerns that we need to have?
Very good. As you all know, the last year the debate has been centered a lot about the impact of artificial intelligence, in all levels of our lives, and of course architecture doesn't escape from that. And there's no fixed or clear answer to your question, or a finished answer to your question. So what I can maybe do is to share a couple of comments. One is that what we saw after a long winter period of artificial intelligence, where this was a very far subject from our daily lives. In the last year, we saw the rise of many applications. We cannot count how many appear because it's a huge number. And I think one of the things that we can learn from that is that suddenly people that sometimes don't have so advanced skills in certain digital areas suddenly can start getting access to some information and also performing certain operations. For instance, there is people that don't know how to code, but suddenly they can ask in platforms of ChatGPT how to code something, and you get that code, and then you can try that code in a software. So one of the interesting things that I find is that there potentially, this could leverage some people and could allow some people to experiment things that they never thought to experiment before, because they didn't have that skill. Of course, the important thing here is to know how to make these questions, and to know what you want to do. So this brings to another question, that sometimes everyone says that technology is a problem. They are here, they have a bias. They are formatting us. We are controlled by the technology. But let's say I tend to think that if there's a problem, or if there is something that we should be focused is in ourselves, because there is a small book by Douglas Rushkoff that says the title of the book is Program or Be Programmed. And so this I won't take this title literally, but let's say in other words, we can say that we can use this platform, but in the end have a critical thinking and reasoning regarding the results. And if we want, we can decide not to use them. But if you don't have this critical vision, we will use it, and maybe we are using wrong answers. And ChatGPT gives a lot of wrong answers. So let's say we have tools in front of us, but we are still in charge of deciding what to ask, how to use, etc. And this brings also to the point of education. So educate our own education, our own literacy is key. It has been key over the centuries, and is key today to be able to exercise this critical vision on the use of technology. Because it's easy to say, technology is the problem. So from my point of view, is in ourselves. We should invest in our education as we are investing in the technology. We shouldn't forget that. And the other thing is, because of sustainability, I think this is, as I showed in the slide, this is one of the technologies that we have in front of us to use. This is still far from the potential that it can reach, so we are in the beginning, I think. But let's say if the traditional design process in architecture has been a linear one, no? From having an idea, developing, analyzing, communicating, and building it. And then we saw with computation, we saw the possibility to have a more flexible way of designing, enhancing, for instance, collaboration through building information modeling. And I see that, and I think that with artificial intelligence, we are adding the possibility of using existing cases, let's say existing information, existing buildings, existing information, to give us important feedback to take our decisions. So the same way a doctor using artificial intelligence can quickly use millions of x-rays to help him identify in a particular x-ray if that spot is a cancer or not, because the artificial intelligence has this ability to match patterns over this huge amount of information. Maybe us, when designing something, and we have platforms like AI Spacemaker, no? We can maybe we have our own aesthetic idea or design intentions. We can optimize that design concerning a specific goal, but suddenly, let's say, instead of this optimization being an abstract and mathematical condition, maybe you can use a data set of a lot of buildings that, for instance, were built in timber, and understand how timber resisted in a specific geographic place in order to help us to know if that timber is the right material for that specific project in that specific place. So it's not just a linear project anymore. It's not just about collaboration. It's not just about mathematical optimization. We add to all of this the possibility of working with a wide space of cases of information that we might craft then and to inform our decisions. I think we are, let's say, always in this place and in this role of taking the decision.
Very nice. Thank you so much for your answer. I don't know if Professor Neander has anything to add or would like to talk anything.
Not at the moment. I think your questions are kind of the same as mine. The questions you put for him.
Okay, no problem.
You stole my questions.
Okay. So, Professor José Pedro Sousa, thank you so much for your participation. Sorry for any delays. We're having like these kinds of issues since last time. But we will improve it for next opportunities. All right. So thank you so much, and it was very enlightening for anyone present here, everyone present here, since the NEB is not a very well-known movement in Brazil. So all the contents you brought to us today was very, very enriching. Thank you so much for participation.
Thank you very much for the invitation again. Just let me tell you that to underline one thing. So the European Bauhaus is not a closed movement. Of course, it was born in Europe. It has a lot of initiatives taking place in Europe. But let's say, as the high-level roundtable also has some people outside from Europe. So Shigeru Ban from Japan, Sheila Patel from India, Francis Carré from Africa. So there's a few people from outside, because let's say how other continents, how other regions are thinking about this problem and what are the problems in other regions are very important, let's say, to inspire also what to do. So this exchange is very important, and those in Brazil that have experience, and you in Brazil, there's a lot of very interesting architecture and very ecological architecture. So please visit the site. There is a place there where you can submit projects and experiences. And so this is one of other ways that you have to somehow connect with this movement and also inspire it, inform it, because it is not just a one direction movement. This is a big directional one, and we should learn from each other and not being in the position that we are going to teach others. No, we should learn because each place is different, each response is different, problems are different over the globe. So we must connect and learn and support each other. I think this is the important thing. Thank you very much.
Nice.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Bye-bye. Thank you, Professor Niata. Nice to meet you.
Thank you.
Pessoal, eu gostaria muito de poder ainda ouvir de vocês, tá? Porque como a palestra foi em inglês, provavelmente vocês devem ter tido alguma dúvida ou alguma questão, né? Eu sei que no momento ali de perguntar para o professor, né, é difícil, e mesmo que eu tenha sugerido isso na última aula, muitas vezes há alguma dificuldade, né? Então eu fico aqui à disposição para ouvir vocês, até porque a gente precisa esperar um pouquinho o Orkan, né, se liberar e etc. Tá? A gente pode voltar a falar em português aqui, eu acho que é um momento assim para que a gente possa compartilhar. Enquanto vocês vão aí surgindo com alguma dúvida ou alguma coisa, eu queria falar um pouco mais sobre a European Bauhaus. Tá? É claro que o professor José Pedro Sousa, como um representante da European Bauhaus, tem um conhecimento muito mais alargado de estudo, né? Eu acho que a apresentação dele coloca assim, muito bem os vários desafios e as várias oportunidades que aparecem, né? Essa iniciativa que ele apresentou ali no final, não sei se vocês repararam, que foi a NEB Go South, European Bauhaus Go South, foi uma iniciativa de 2021 que tem a intenção de se expandir, vamos dizer assim, né, de abordar aí, vamos dizer, um campo ampliado ou aproximar outros países que não sejam apenas da comunidade europeia, para que possam fazer parte disso, né? Tanto que, ao chamar o professor José Pedro e ter esse interesse de falar sobre a European Bauhaus, eu acho que a ideia era um pouco começar a criar esses vínculos para além da Europa, né? Essa iniciativa, né, Go South, ela foi desenvolvida pela Universidade do Porto, em conjunto com outras 5 universidades, se não me engano, da Itália, da França, da Sérvia, enfim, um conjunto de outras instituições, né? E eu acho que, dentro do contexto, eu acho que a própria Universidade de Brasília poderia eventualmente contribuir, né? Eu sei que alguns de vocês presentes aí têm esse tipo de trabalho, né? Tem esse tipo de vinculação social, de vinculação ecológica, etc. E fica mesmo assim um pouco essa oportunidade em aberto, tá? Para que, caso alguém queira desenvolver alguma iniciativa ou desenvolver algum projeto, é possível aí, por meio dessa parceria, a gente estabelecer alguma vinculação, certo? Então, eu acho que é algo assim, importante de deixar claro, né? O professor José Pedro apresentou ali rapidamente, mas eu acho que poderia esclarecer isso assim, dessa maneira, que é algo mesmo a ser explorado e eventualmente a gente pode a gente pode desenvolver algum projeto em conjunto, tá? Outra coisa que eu queria esclarecer é que em algum momento pode ter ficado assim um pouco distanciado do tema do próprio workshop, trazer uma fala sobre a European Bauhaus, mas eu tenho uma tendência de observar essa temática da inteligência artificial, e isso eu acho que até já foi assim um pouco comentado na última sessão, mas de observar essa temática dentro mesmo de uma abordagem ética, dentro de uma necessidade, né, de contornar todas essas polêmicas que existem pelo uso dessa tecnologia dentro de um contexto assim mesmo humanístico, né, dentro de uma fundamentação mesmo que possa nos pautar uma aplicação assim mais consciente, vamos dizer, né, mais talvez menos sei lá, menos pós-apocalíptica, né, como muitas vezes se coloca isso assim, né? Essa coisa da máquina dominar, né, da perda de empregos e todas essas questões assim que vêm junto quando se fala sobre inteligência artificial, né? Até ontem eu estava lendo uma notícia recente que saiu aqui na Europa, falando que alguns países já estão, por exemplo, se mostrando contrários à utilização do chat GPT, né? No sentido até de bloquear o uso mesmo, proibir o uso do chat GPT, né? Países como a Itália, a Espanha, a Alemanha, inclusive, se posicionou com relação a isso, né? A matéria, ela inclusive pauta assim, um outro lado disso, que existem até alguns países que vêm incentivando muito o uso dessa tecnologia, né? Mas que no contexto europeu isso vem se tornando assim uma espécie de uma ameaça, né? Uma ameaça à privacidade das pessoas, uma ameaça enfim, é uma série de questões, né, que giram aí em torno disso. Então, quando eu pedi para o professor José Pedro trazer essa palestra, né, era um pouco assim tentar criar uma abertura com relação à aplicação da inteligência artificial, né, pautada em alguns princípios que, como ele explicou, por exemplo, fazem parte de um contexto de revisão mesmo do que é a indústria da construção civil, né, do que é, sei lá, a maneira como a gente vem pensando, de fato, a nossa construção nos dias de hoje, né? Então, se a gente está falando aqui, se tem essa proposta, né, de pensar o uso dessa tecnologia no contexto assim da nossa prática profissional, eu acho importante trazer esse tipo de balizamento, né? Acho importante colocar esse tipo de discussão também na mesa para vocês poderem eventualmente, né, a gente poder ter uma conversa aqui franca, assim, aberta. Eu acho que o workshop ele não tem assim uma tendência de ser nada formal, né? Então eu acho que a gente pode ter aqui uma conversa, como por exemplo a Cristina trouxe uma pergunta fundamental, né, para a gente na última aula, etc. Então pode parecer assim um pouco distante, né? O José Pedro falar sobre ecologia, colocar todas essas questões assim, que não necessariamente está falando sobre o uso da tecnologia, mas é para que esse debate da inteligência artificial sempre venha atrelado por algum princípio ético, por alguma questão mesmo humanística, por alguma contextualização que não fique somente pautada no uso da tecnologia assim, por si, né? Então, talvez possa ter tido assim algum distanciamento da temática original, mas eu acho que a intenção era um pouco poder trazer isso para a mesa e a gente poder conversar aqui, tá? E uma outra coisa que daí já assim num âmbito mais técnico mesmo, né? Um exemplo que ele trouxe ali, né? Não sei se vocês repararam, mas ele falou de um aplicativo que se chama Space Maker, um aplicativo que eu conheci muito recentemente, lembrando que essa pesquisa que eu estou desenvolvendo é uma pesquisa de pós-doutorado que durou somente um ano, né? Então, comecei em abril do ano passado, de 2022, e vou concluir justamente agora nesse final de mês, né? Então, essas novas ferramentas, esses novos instrumentos, eles estão surgindo assim numa velocidade muito grande, né? Mas me chamou muita atenção esse software específico chamado AI Space Maker, porque a possibilidade de uma modelagem tridimensional já por meio da inteligência artificial, já assim com várias ferramentas embutidas, né? E que facilmente é possível testar volumetrias, que é possível, vamos dizer assim, experimentar implantações, né, das edificações no terreno. Eu acho que seria um ótimo caminho para que vocês possam pesquisar mais sobre, tá? Se alguém já tiver algum conhecimento sobre isso, ou se alguém tiver o tempo de pesquisar isso aí nos próximos dias e quiser compartilhar com a gente, eu acho que seria muito bem-vindo, tá? Eu acho que seria assim uma oportunidade mesmo para a gente aprender aqui de uma maneira coletiva, tá? Eu, infelizmente, eu não tenho assim um conhecimento a ponto de poder compartilhar com vocês, né, o uso desse software. Mas, enfim, eu acho que também fica aí um caminho para uma possível pesquisa, para um possível desenvolvimento, pensando que é uma ferramenta mesmo assim voltada para o uso arquitetônico, né? Eu sei de uma ferramenta específica dentro do Grasshopper, que é dentro de um Python chamado Lunchbox, que já há algum tempo, acho que desde 2018, mas que se tornou assim mais acessível nos últimos anos, que inclui a machine learning, né, que inclui essa, vamos dizer assim, essa equação, né, de volumes e etc., já por meio de uma automatização, né, utilizando a inteligência artificial. E existem tutoriais, isso eu já estudei um pouco, eventualmente, quem quiser aprofundar isso nas etapas de experimentação nos últimos 2 dias do workshop, eventualmente a gente pode dar alguma pincelada e eu posso mostrar alguma coisa também, né? Os últimos 2 dias eles vão ser muito dedicados a outras técnicas, né? Conforme eu disse, mais voltados assim, para a visão computacional, mas eu acho que, enfim, né, é uma área que é muito ampla. Eu acho que as ambições e o que a gente pode tentar imaginar com isso são assim várias, né, são muito extensas, né? Então qualquer contribuição eu acho que também pode acrescentar muito e, enfim, só desenvolver aí todo o debate que a gente propõe, né? Então não sei se vocês querem conversar alguma coisa ou se a gente faz assim uma breve pausa para esperar o Orkan, tá? Fico à disposição aqui de vocês. Vocês também, se o Neander quer complementar alguma coisa agora.
Igor, não sei se você me ouve.
Sim.
Eu fiquei pensando aqui, né, essa sua preocupação em estabelecer a conexão entre a temática apresentada pelo professor José, né, e a inteligência artificial. E muitas vezes a gente pensa a inteligência artificial como uma coisa em si mesma, né? A inteligência artificial é um conjunto de ferramentas, né? Um conjunto de procedimentos, né? E talvez fosse interessante para os presentes, talvez refletir um pouco que o seguinte aspecto, né? A construção de um sistema de inteligência artificial ou de um aplicativo, do ponto de vista do ponto inicial, o kickstart, ele não é muito diferente do desenvolvimento de um software comum em alguns aspectos. Você parte de uma necessidade de uma área específica de aplicação, e não o contrário. Né? Você não pensa na ferramenta, na tecnologia desvinculada daquilo que ela vai ser aplicada. Então, se eu tenho um problema, se eu consigo definir um problema numa certa área, então esse é o ponto de partida, é uma necessidade concreta. Né? Qual a necessidade concreta, por exemplo, com relação às questões ambientais que a gente encontra hoje? Né? E quais seriam as vantagens de uma tecnologia de inteligência artificial em relação às demais, né? As demais maneiras de trabalhar o problema? Por exemplo, né, a gente às vezes fala da questão ambiental, então vamos propor que todo mundo passe a usar carros elétricos ou transportes elétricos. Né? É interessante que isso não é suficiente, porque se você for olhar hoje, a maioria dos carros elétricos, dos transportes elétricos do mundo, quase, eu diria aí que um percentual extremamente alto recarrega suas baterias em meios de produção de eletricidade que são termoelétricos, que usam fóssil fuel. Né? Então, assim, existe aí uma necessidade que a gente tenha uma visão mais ampla, que a gente trate o problema como ele é de uma forma complexa. Porque não é simplesmente, por exemplo, se a edificação que eu construo, ela é em si um objeto que demanda muita energia ou que causa muito impacto ambiental durante o seu uso. É preciso também analisar, por exemplo, os materiais. Da onde que vêm esses materiais? Por exemplo, um painel de energia fotovoltaica, beleza, ele gera energia limpa. Né? Ele, durante a vida útil dele, ele é muito legal, por assim dizer, né? Mas ele é produzido, ele é constituído por materiais que hoje são produzidos por indústrias que geram muito CO2, não é? Se você for dar uma olhada. Então a gente precisa lidar com todo o processo produtivo. Né? Isso gera aí, então, talvez a necessidade de ferramentas de inteligência artificial que possam levar em consideração um grande número de variáveis, né? E permitir com que a gente possa representar o conhecimento dessa área de uma forma mais manuseável. Não é? E aí, só depois, né, a gente, definido o problema, definida a necessidade específica, é que passaria a tentar vislumbrar quais as técnicas, ou quais os paradigmas, ou quais os tipos de inteligência artificial seriam necessárias para lidar com cada um desses problemas. Né? Então, acho que talvez aí refletir um pouquinho na complexidade. A complexidade é uma coisa que nos leva muito a pensar em instrumentos de inteligência artificial, aqueles que envolvem ou que simulam pelo menos o raciocínio, né, a capacidade de generalizar a partir do conhecimento, do aprendizado, não é? E a resolução de problemas que a gente viu inclusive na sessão anterior, né? Eu acho que é isso. Talvez a gente refletir aí. Também a gente pode dar um intervalinho, né? Eu acho que o professor ele ficou combinado às 10h30, no horário de Brasília. Igor, você está mudo.
Desculpa, né? Eu estou aqui falando com ele e ele disse que já está disponível.
Beleza.
Eu vou falar para ele entrar, tá?
Tá, ótimo.
Eu acho que ele já está... Ele teve uma apresentação agora na Bélgica, se não me engano, e eu acho que ele acabou já de terminar e vai poder entrar agora. Eu tive um probleminha com o link, e daí quando eu compartilhei com outros que estavam tendo essa dificuldade, pelo convite daqui da nossa própria sala aqui agora, parece que funcionou melhor, tá? Não sei se... Eu sei que teve gente que conseguiu entrar pelo link aí normal.
O que aconteceu aqui, Igor, é que como eu vejo a página do Teams como do corpo permanente da UNB, eu vejo todas as salas. Eu acidentalmente entrei na sala errada, onde já haviam outras pessoas anteriormente, né? Quando a pessoa recebe o link, se ela clicar no link, geralmente dá certo. Mas se ela entra lá na sala, no grupo do Teams, e vê uma série de salas, ela acidentalmente ela pode entrar no lugar errado, né? Quando eu entrei lá, tinha umas 6 pessoas já, né? Todas pensando que estavam no lugar certo. Então é sempre bom usar o link que foi enviado, né? Principalmente tem muitas pessoas que têm vínculo com a UNB e já entram direto no grupo, né? E lá saem procurando e às vezes inadvertidamente entram na sala errada.
Entendi. Bem que quando eu pedi o apoio aí dali, ela me enviou uma foto e eu vi que vocês já estavam numa sala. E eu falei, uai, mas por que eu não tô conseguindo entrar aqui? Então, gente, se vocês não tiverem nenhuma pergunta e não tiverem assim uma questão para levantar agora, eu só pediria para vocês aguardarem alguns minutinhos, tá? Vamos tentar fazer assim já direto, sem colocar um intervalo. Que o professor Orkan ele já vai entrar, tá? Já ele está entrando.
Bom dia, Igor.
Oi, Marão.
Assim, como a gente está falando também dessa questão de eficiência energética, né, e da inteligência artificial, como que vocês veem toda a questão de processamento e de gasto energético que a inteligência artificial tem para processar toda essa informação e que o volume está estourando, né, está cada vez maior e acho que a tendência é chegar no teto.
Com certeza. Inclusive, nós vamos fazer uma extensão desse workshop para os alunos aqui da Faculdade de Arquitetura da Universidade do Porto. E quando nós começamos a fazer os testes com o Midjourney, com o ChatGPT, em nenhum momento a gente conseguiu gerar uma imagem ou gerar uma resposta do ChatGPT. A demanda ali está tão grande, né? Tá tão assim intensa o processamento que foi impossível, né? E eu acho que até existe também assim uma estratégia desse serviço de começarem mesmo a exigir a subscrição, né? A exigir a inscrição nas plataformas para que as pessoas possam ter o uso sem depender lá daqueles mínimos, né, que eles colocam para a pessoa usar, né, de forma gratuita. Né? Essa questão do gasto energético, realmente, assim, eu não sou o melhor especialista para falar sobre isso, né? E trazer assim, algum dado sobre o impacto disso na realidade, etc. Mas é claro que esses processamentos todos dependem de unidades de computação que demandam muito, né, que exigem muito, inclusive a plataforma que a gente vai utilizar, que é o Google Colab, né, ela oferece essas unidades de computação que normalmente elas são melhores do que as que os nossos computadores caseiros oferecem, né? A não sei que alguém tem um super computador com uma placa de vídeo super poderosa, muito provavelmente o que o Google oferta vai conseguir realizar tarefas ali que o nosso computador não conseguiria, né? E existe, eu acho que essa preocupação até mesmo dentro desse debate que, por exemplo, o José Pedro trouxe, né? Porque muitas das iniciativas dentro, por exemplo, da European Bauhaus, elas estão pautadas pelo uso da tecnologia digital, né? Eventualmente até mesmo utilizando essas técnicas assim, que dependem da nuvem, né, para funcionar e usando essas fazendas, né, de computadores, etc. E é claro que existe toda uma preocupação, né? Eu acho que o que ele trouxe ali no debate é muito voltado assim para uma conscientização dentro da construção civil, né? Que é um dos principais emissores de carbono, etc., como ele falou. Mas ele também não trouxe assim, esse dado específico, né, vamos dizer, desse campo digital, né, de como que eventualmente essas tecnologias todas aí, elas vêm a impactar. So, Orkan is already in. Thank you, Orkan, for being here with us.
Hello. Do you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. I am in Istanbul, so like completely different time zone. I told my colleagues that I'm going to Brazil.
We would be glad to receive you in Brazil. It's very, very nice.
Yeah, thank you.
So
let me try sharing.
Okay.
You said window. How is it?
It's working fine.
It's working fine. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
So thank you for being here a little bit earlier.
No problem. I mean, I was already available, so.
I kindly asked Orkan to be here a little bit earlier since José Pedro Sousa couldn't extend much his talk. And I'll introduce Orkan. We're getting back to English now, people. So in this second part, we are also much honored to receive Professor Orkan Güzelci to talk about the intersections of machine learning and interior architecture, digital representation innovation. Orkan Güzelci received his bachelor's degree in architecture at Istanbul Culture University in 2010, a master's degree in architectural design program in 2012, and a PhD degree in architectural design computing program at Istanbul Technical University, ITU, in 2018. During his graduate studies, he won various prizes in Turkish architectural competitions and worked on construction projects. Between 2010 and 2020, he worked as a full-time faculty member at the Department of Interior Architecture and Environmental Design at Istanbul Culture University. In 2020, he joined the DFL at FAUP as a postdoctoral researcher and completed postdoctoral program in architecture in 2021. Also in 2020, and correct me if I'm wrong, Orkan co-founded Metametric, a streaming platform for sharing knowledge in architectural digital innovation. Currently, he's conducting his research activities at the DFL and teaching graduate courses at ITU. So I invite Professor Orkan to his presentation, and thank you so much for your availability to be here with us today. It's quite an honor, Orkan.
Thank you very much, Igor. Thank you for having me. Can you also tell me that what kind of group we have as an audience, like professors, students, from which degree, which level?
Professor Neander here, let me introduce him to you. Sorry for that. But Professor Neander kindly shared with us the opportunity to participate in his graduate course. So we're having like master students and PhD students present. We have a general audience like from many parts also in the room, and we have YouTube live streaming, which probably gathering also some larger audience. So,
Okay.
but mainly for graduate students.
Okay. Thank you very much. I'm going to share my screen, and I'm planning this presentation around like 45 minutes. It is visible, right?
Yes, it is.
You are not on my screen anymore. So, thank you again. I mean, I have a routine. I generally do not go into too much detail about like definitions of things or like subjects, but I prefer to share like my previous works as case studies and discuss based on it the subjects. So today the topic is applications of machine learning in architecture. There is a mixed content that I prepared for you. So the things I try to categorize it according to its scale. So my first study is about classrooms. So there is a single space. The second one is about monumental tombs. It's in the building scale. And also I have some studies on maps, which is in urban scale, and there is also text-based AI productions, which are like abstract things. So, I mean, for these four experiments, we also experimented with like different AI techniques and algorithms. The first two use pix-to-pix algorithm. The third one use CycleGAN, and the fourth one use GTP, Small Turkish Language Processing algorithm. So I'm going to start with our study called Edu Edu from Education. And it's a collaboration work with Semala Cemal Karadağ. So the goal here was to automate classroom layout generation with ML machine learning. So in Turkey, we have like schools with a lot of classrooms, and our Ministry of Education also asked many architects to design some typical projects and build these typical projects in different parts of the Turkey. So there is no context, no special requirements, nothing. So these are like typical projects with like 32 to 40 classrooms, and these are like simply built all over the Turkey. But the thing is, for example, if you are able to do, or like, I mean, if you have a certain knowledge on how to organize the furniture in the classroom, so for example, like the boards and the teacher's desk and the rest and lockers, etc., and the location of the door. If you have some knowledge, you can do it easily. But otherwise, it's a repetitive work that has to be done like many times. Even you are using a basic command of like copy in AutoCAD or another software, it takes some time. So we were thinking that if we can do it without making some reasoning, so can we do it like automatically? And here for that, at the beginning we have one like empty layout, so we call it footprint. Then we have a zoning plan, a layout planning with zones, only with zones, and we have the furniture's drawings in those zones. So we had a model that sees that empty space and makes zoning. This is the first model. And there is another model that gets the zones as an input and gives furnitures to it, for it. And these are our like data sets. So this is the first data set from like footprint to zones and from zones to furnitures. So we have two different data sets. And together these we checked like a lot of typical projects from Turkey, from Ministry of Education. These are like public information that you can reach. And we prepared this data set. And if you can see, like most of them are like familiar with like small differences. So they are like small interventions, but generally they all have like similar elements. And with the pix-to-pix algorithm, we started to train the model. So we give this empty model and give this zoning as a target. And you can see from like 10th epoch means is the iteration. So if you teach the model, if you train the model with the same data set like 10 times, it means it's the epoch. So you have to be using all material, all training material once to have one epoch. And here in the after like 170th epoch, we are starting to have very similar, almost same results to the target floor plan layout. And here, these like teacher desk, student desk, lockers, and board, we have these things all in different colors to introduce it to the computer. And we use this very ugly colors, but the reason is the computer has to understand and make things very distinctive from each other. Otherwise, I mean, there might be a confusion just because of the color. So that's why we use like very contrast color to each other. And we make some tests with the material. For example, like this is our like source, and this is the generation. For example, here we give the empty one, and we get this as a target. And here we use a method called structural similarity. So it's basically counting the pixels and the location of the pixels and give the similarity as an objective method. And here, for example, the similarity level is 0.88. So 1 is the maximum and 0 is the minimum number. For example, here we have a different kind of shape, which can be like quite confusing for the computer, and the similarity score reduced to 0.63. And we have one more here, like almost perfect. This one is around like 80. For example, this one doesn't have the lockers. This one with the locker. So maybe it's another factor that affects the similarity score. And then we make the second training from zones to, let's say, furnitures. And we also have this doors. You can see that computer was not able to create a door perfectly because, like, except these, everything was straight lines and perpendicular, but this is a curved line. So, and we don't have that much curved line here to train the model. There's only one door that model can learn, and it was not able to learn. Like this one is quite okay, but you see there's like many confusions here. And in the first until like 7th epochs, it learns almost nothing, just like borders. And here is the validation score. So we have like around 82%, 70%, 77% as minimum. And we also tried our model with different shapes, you know, like maybe not very realistic as a classroom, but we just want to try it with other shapes. And here you can see, like, we give the footprint, we get the zone plan, and we use this zone plan as a source of the second model, which takes the zoning and creates furnitures. When we compare the results, here, like the 78% is the minimum. But here, for example, we saw like worst scores. For example, we have like 63 here. The reason is when you give a blank space, is more difficult to organize the zoning in it. But here, we already have the zones, so computer more or less know that these zones are corresponding to another furniture, and it's easy to place the furniture in this zone. So, like when you are in complete emptiness, things are much more difficult for the computer. And here I can simply summarize our process. So we had these full projects. We get those. We divided it into two data sets. One with footprint and zoning, and other one is with zoning and furnishing. So we make training with the first data set and the second data set. So there's two trainings. So, and we make this validation for a given footprint, and we also make the validation with an extreme footprint. So what was the key result? Yeah, we didn't have like thousands of schools, but we had like 50 schools, and we had like 10, maybe 10 types, 10 floor plan types for each classroom, each school, and some of them was like overlapping, and at the end we continue to train the model with maybe 200 classroom types. So it was our just 200 layouts, and we considered it as a small data set, and I think the results were satisfactory to us. And the other thing is, as you can see here, it's possible to apply this model to different complex plan geometries. And there's a difference level, success level between two trained models, as I tried to mention. When you give the empty one, it is less successful, but if you give the zoned one, the model is more successful. So there's a difference between these two layers. Yeah, and these things, of course, it was about classrooms, but it can be applicable to, for example, hospitals or city halls, where there is a footprint zoning relation, or like zoning and like furniture relation. Also, food courts of the like shopping centers. You can use these kind of things to make this zoning and furniture relocation. Okay, this was our first study. The second one is called Kümbet. Okay, so you are listening. So I was in a like complete darkness. So okay, so I'm sharing again. Yeah. Okay. Okay. So the second study is about Kümbet. I'm going to introduce Kümbet. Kümbet is a monumental tomb where they put the mummies, like mumia, the mummy, of very important people in Selçuk Empire in Turkey. So it's from like, these are from like 13th and 14th centuries. These are like monumental tombs. And they place the mummies here, and in the upper level, people just come here and pray and like wish things and so on. And this Kümbet mainly has three different typologies. The first one is cubic based. The second one is polygonal based, which are mostly octagonals, and the third one is cylindric ones. And when we check the like written and visual literature, we know that the biggest problem about Kümbets are missing caps, the roofing system. You know, according to like lack of renovation or like other things like earthquakes, etc. The first part that collapsed is the roof part. And in Turkey, we have, I think, 58 Kümbets distributed to Anatolia. And after 14th century, there is no more Kümbets built. Even when it is built, it is not in the same, let's say, same style or originality level with the Selçuk Empire ones. So first, I collected all of these data from the sources, and this is the cap part. There's a drum. This part, it's a kind of transition element from like this main wall to the roofing system. There is the prayer room, and there is the crypt. And the thing is, from interior, it is with a dome, and from the outside, from the exterior, it is with a pointed roof, like conical roof. And another thing was, when I checked the cumbets from different sources, this is a drawing of the same cumbet, but when you check it, you can see that there is different section drawings done for the same cumbet. The reason is, for example, you see like they are done in different time periods. For example, Gabriel was in Turkey in 1930s, and he made these drawings in excursions. So he was not assigned for a detailed survey job. He was there as his own research, and he also made these drawings. So it's not perfect. And this is from like 69, and this is from 86. All different things. And that comes with the question, like, what if we lost a part of the cumbet, and which drawing or which source should we follow? And there were like no answers to that. So that's why I said maybe I can train the model with all cumbets. So the model, the machine learning model, can learn the technique, maybe the systematic of it from this data objectively, not teaching something to it, like the intuition or like experience. So from the data, and can we also ask the models to complete the missing part of the cumbet? So this is the representative style that I developed. So we have one interior space, and we also have the outer shell. So for each interior space, there is the outer shell, and there is like more than 90, I think, drawings I have. So these are the inputs, and these are the outputs. So I started to train the model with also fixed bits, and you see that like it started like learning, but it didn't come to like perfect end, because we have like very limited. Like in the previous study, it was around like 200 elements in the dataset, but here we have only like 90. So we have like we don't have the great perfect result. But I mean, at least the shape and the thickness are like similar somehow. And for the second phase, I found like four damaged cumbets, which lost its cap and stayed with the dome only. But here still it's possible to extract the source, the interior, and we can give this interior to the model to produce exterior. And here are the generations of that one. For example, this one, there was a half cumbet which was not built, so they started to build, but they just make it leave it like that. And this is our input. And since there is no like domes, that's the result generated by the model. So model is only able to produce or generate results according to its existing knowledge. So that one doesn't work for us. And for example, here there is one cumbet, and this is a restitution drawing done by an expert. But this is the result of the computer. And when we check this, you know, you see that there is a huge and massive walls here, which we don't see much in the Kumbet collection. So here we can also like we can question the suggestions of the experts. So I cannot say that our production, our generation is perfect, but we can also not say that the experts are like creating the perfect restitution drawing. And here we also have like 3 other Kumbets like damaged. These doesn't have any drawings done by the expert. We only have it in this condition. And when we give it to the model, we got these caps which are not known previously. For example, this one, it's not only like completing here, but it creates a complete new roofing system according to, or roofing shape according to its previous knowledge. Yeah, here also like we have again the small data set, and we have like 2-step validation. We have one validation material that we can compare with the restitution, and there is another one that we cannot compare, but it creates new things. And here by doing this, we also tested its generative part of the ML model. Yeah, so the similar things can be applied to historical typologies. For example, if there's a church without a bell tower, maybe we can use it to complete the bell tower, for example. Yeah. The third study, also a collaborative study with Sema and Ilker, is about Pervitic. Okay, who is Pervitic? Pervitic is a French cartographer that comes to Turkey in early 30s. Sorry, early 30s to produce some maps for the insurance company, because there were like a lot of fires, like big scale fires in the city center of Istanbul, and that time the buildings in Istanbul, like the civil architecture in Istanbul, was wooden. So that's why there was a great damage by this fire. So that's why they hired Pervitic to create these maps. And this map has a lot of information on it. So like it has the material information, construction technique, the geometrical data, and like number of floors, like many things. And these are similar maps by Gold. This is called Gold series. This is German blues. These are done by Germans, and this is Pervitic maps. And yeah, IPM means Istanbul Pervitic maps, and SV is the satellite view. Okay, so when we merge and overlap the satellite view and the Pervitic maps, there is no one-to-one matching on a grid. So they are like distributed all over the like historical peninsula of Istanbul. Because some parts are like overlapping. There is no like right angles. So for this one, we couldn't use fixed algorithm because we don't have this like one-to-one mapping things. And also, for example, Pervitic started to create these maps in like 1920s and ended at like 1944, 45. So there was like 20 years of time span. And during that time, for example, this zone here, you can see it was like cemetery, but then it become a like urban area with many buildings. So it was another issue. And normally the algorithms, like like text-to-text algorithm, for example, works with like paired image that I showed, like input and output, and it gives the same info. You know, like this is like most like in the same orientation, etc. There's a square, same size, same orientation. But in this work, we use cycle-gen algorithm, which works with unpaired data. So we can collect all heritage maps in one folder, and we can have the satellite views in another folder. That can be used for like training. We also try make some like trials. How can we like overlap these two? Can we parse it, etc. And after the training, you can see here some results. For example, these are the training data, but here you can see that, for example, there is a church here. Church is given in blue, and here on our Google map, current Google map, the church is blue. I mean, it's like it's colored with blue. Also here, you can see that we have the satellite view, but the satellite view is colored as heritage maps, and this is like vice versa. For example, here on the heritage maps, you can see that. Sorry, in the satellite view, you can see that the string information that is written here is transferred to satellite view. And for example, the house partitions are also transferred to it. And you can see also some other details here. For example, these are the inputs and these are the generations. And we tried for a bigger portion of map, and these are the results. Yeah, of course, we had some difficulties, which are we were able to transfer green areas, construction techniques and materials, and labels we can also transfer. But we had like a lot of errors due to like color tones used in the maps, also scale difference and visual quality. What I mean with this? For example, you see like we have like same drawings set, but for example, this one is drawn with lighter colors, pipe heritage, and this drawn with like dark colors. Or these materials are generally photographed or like scanned materials, and we might have some visual quality difference between them. Another thing is, for example, this is a map, maybe in 1 to 500 scale, but there's another map, for example, this is for like 1 to 1000. So, for example, if you think that this is a A4 paper, there's very small data on it. No, it's not visible, but here you see the things are like visible, it's readable, etc. So the data set was like really mixed, and having materials with different qualities, I mean, in terms of content and in terms of representation. Yeah, so this was the third study that I want to share. Yeah, the fourth study is with Barış, Sema, and Hanna, and it's called like synthetic abstracts. Here we try to use the language models of AI to create some abstracts for like let's say it's like an academic abstract, like a summary of a paper. And for that, what we did, sorry that was in Turkish, I don't have the original of it, so I'm going to translate. So first, in the first dataset, we had the abstracts of the conference papers from a single conference, which is a computational design conference in Turkey. So national computational design conference. And the second one was the thesis, master thesis, and PhD thesis completed in architectural design competing program of Istanbul Technical University. So we have the papers from computational design field, and we have the thesis from computational design field. And what we did, we make a training with these two. We make one training for the paper abstracts with the paper abstracts, and another training, complete individual training with thesis abstracts. And what we did, we also made content analysis, and from that content analysis, we find the keywords and phrases. And then, at the third phase, by giving these keywords or like phrases, we ask the machine learning model to create us some abstracts. So these are the yearly numbers of the thesis. Sorry, these are the conferences, and these are the theses. So this is the cumulative number of it. So at the end, we have like 189, not 8, so 159 theses from computational design field, and 208 papers from computational design as well. And this is the heat map of the words. For example, akıllı means intelligent, artificial is the augmented, from augmented reality. We have the computer, digital, traditional, geometric, like conceptual, urban, and like conventional, architecture, game, parametric, and yeah, like generative, data, artificial, etc. So here is the frequency of these keywords and their representation as a heat map. So we have like a lot of design, we have a lot of architecture, like a lot of building, but we also have the others, like from computational design field. And as an input, for example, we give the shape grammar, and we got a text from the computer that's written in Turkish. And this model that we use, like GTP, like small Turkish model, it was trained with the all Turkish data, Turkish written data in the Wikipedia. Okay, so that's how it knows Turkish. For example, like if you compare the Turkish data in the Wikipedia with English data, probably there will be a difference, because like probably there are like more content in English, and if we train this model with English, it would create maybe better results. But here, when we check the content, and when we read it, we are able to gather some and extract some tips. For example, here it says shape grammar can be used to analyze nature, solving complex problems and design, and with geometric patterns, because we use shape grammar to understand Islamic geometric patterns a lot, since it's very rule-based geometry. And here we have another one as an input, another phrase like building information modeling, BIM. And here there is this themes in the text. So multi-discipline, a bridge between disciplines that affect the creation of the end product. So there is something about end product, something about discipline, and connecting people somehow. And here we have the digital. And when we say digital, it starts to speculate about digital and make it digital design and digital fabrication, integration of digital design and fabrication with the design studio. Because probably in the thesis there are a lot of experiments and a lot of works that try to combine design studio with digital design. That's why it has a tendency, the model has a tendency to talk about design studio, also digital fabrication. And about computational, it just creates like computational design tools for mass design. Probably the computational tools are used for like mass design and relate with digital design environment. Yeah, I think these are all that I can present now. And if you have any questions, I will be happy to answer. And we can also speculate all together.
Thank you so much, Orkan, for the inspiring presentation, full of innovations.
Thank you.
And I believe it was very helpful because we are having some. Sorry,
I'm sorry. I'm going to add one thing. Here, like I work with like 3%, and like none of them was very into it. So what we did, we didn't develop any algorithm, but we try to understand what can be done with this certain algorithm and try to find the cases that can be implemented. For example, like we just created our own problems. We decided to, for example, use it for like layout planning because that time it was the pandemic time, and there was like education sector was like having a lot of problems. Like there was the flexibility issue was on the table. This typical projects was not fulfilling the requirements or needs of the students. So there was a need for another kind of approach. For example, for the qubit, now we had a like massive earthquake in Turkey, and as far as I know, there are like 1,050 mosques collapsed. Like 1,050 mosques collapsed in this earthquake. So some of them was really monumental things. If we had this kind of model, it could help the restoration or renovation issues or like processes. And the parametric maps, there's this hybrid mode on Google Maps, so it just like put tags on it, but it doesn't have the historical data on it. But it can be nice to have that data, and that data can bring other ideas or like just enlighten people to think more about the culture and local data, those kind of things. And the fourth one, the abstract was just our speculations. We tried to understand that with a very small data set, again, like with 200 theses, can we create a content? And we couldn't maybe create a great content with it, but we understand that the model is able to, let's say, create some relations. Like it was just like matching the correct or logical pairs, like these concepts, or like, for example, like digital with digital fabrication with the design process. So it was creating these connections and links that we also liked.
Very nice, very nice. Thank you so much for the final explanation. I believe that your presentation was very helpful to start inspiring the attendees for the next sessions that will experiment a bit with the machine learning techniques. So one of the exercises that we'll share with the attendees is with peaks to peaks. So I think it can be very helpful for them to start thinking about these kinds of relations, to matching the data sets and all.
Mm-hmm.
But before I keep with my questions, I would like to see if anyone would like to contribute, to ask something to Orkan. Gente, sintam-se à vontade para conversar aí com o Orkan, tá colocando o mesmo tempo dele para estar aqui presente com a gente. Se vocês quiserem perguntar em português, Fiquem à vontade, a gente traduz aqui para ele, tá? Então, por favor, let's wait to see anyone can contribute. Normally they don't want to ask anything. Professor Neander,
Can you hear me?
please. Yes.
Nice to meet you, Orkan.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to get to know you. Just trying to provoke some questions, to steer some discussion. You're working with machine learning. You probably have in the scope of your work also the use of neural networks. So I'm just curious because I've worked with it a lot in the past, not very recently, but a lot in the time of my time in Scotland. I'm just curious to have some things more clear. For example, how many layers involved in the neural network used, and if you could tell also us, in average, how much time would take a training. And training is a central part of your research. Training is everywhere, and just an average, or if you could give us some examples. And the last question is did you use just broadly available apps, or did you also use in-house developed apps?
Okay. So, I mean, I can start in an order. If I forget, you can remind your question. So, about the layers. Actually, I don't know how many layers there are in the system, in the machine learning model, but I know how it works. So there is things called discriminator, and there is something called generator. So every time there is a like conflict between two, and every time generator creates an image, and the discriminator gives it a rank. So and there is a value. So it starts with a higher value. It tends to go to 0. So when the generation value is becoming close to 0, you will also see in peaks to peaks. If the G number is going to 0, it means that it's almost perfect and the training is successful. But if it's like around like 5, 10, so it means that this model will not give like good results because the process is not balanced or like there is no certain success yet. So this is what I can say about the components of it. So the generator somehow should be like lower to 0, or it should be like stable. I mean, before it, if you stop the training, you will lose some potentials. But for example, also in the web, you can simply ask, for example, if I like 100 data in my 100 element in my data set, how many like iterations should I do? It says like normally you have to do like 20, 50, 60, but you cannot know that. But you have to check the G value that starts from a certain number, and you have to finish your training when it is stabilized. If it is like 2 and it doesn't go like lower, so you can finish at 2. If it's like 2 for like 20, 30 epochs, you can simply close it down. And about training, for these works, I make like because when something is wrong, or if you let's say define your data set in a wrong way, even you make like 500 epochs, the G value doesn't work. So, but if you see some improvements or like generations or like some learning issues in like 20, 30 epochs, so you can continue training. And I was doing like for these models, I use like 200 epoch of training, and it was around 1.5 hours for each training. 1.5 hours for each training, and normally, if you want to update something in your data set, you have to do this training again. For example, with the cubettes, I had, for example, 85 cubettes. Then from another source, I found like 5 more, and I make the training again, just to see the improvement. And yeah, and that time I was like raising the old models, and I was making the training again. About the apps, yes, I do well-known and available apps. There's a platform called Google Colab. It gives you the opportunity to make trainings online, so without using your computer's power. It assigns you a not very bad, but not very nice. What's the name of it? A graphic card, yes, a graphic card that you can make the training with it. So you don't use your computer, but you use the cloud to train the model, and that gives you a limited time to use it. For example, during the day you can use it like 2-3 hours, but after it's just like finished for that day. I didn't use any particularly developed by a person.
Yeah, if I may add something, these neural networks that Professor Neander was referring, the definition that these machine learning models use is a neural network, right? It's a generative adversarial neural network, which was developed mainly by Google, right? And so the first 3 experiments used this neural network called GAN, right? Generative adversarial network. The GPT is called Generative Pre-training Transformer, which I don't think it fits in this definition of neural network, but it's probably something very similar, right? Maybe you can explain a little bit further.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't know the open version of like GPT. I always say like GPT. So like there's a like pre-processed, like pre-trained. So that's why I tried to explain. We have the data of like Wikipedia to train this. So it was the part of it. But for example, like in our papers, we use some like images that shows the layers of it. But since we are not the one who developed these models, no one questioned us about the layering system or the architecture of the model, like the code. So yeah, it was also challenging for us. For example, when we start doing this for the first time, and when we want to publish it in an architectural journal, it was very new for them, like it was foreign. So the editors didn't want to like publish it first because they told us that they have no expert that can evaluate this work. Like no one to review this. But then when we start to write, like we are from like field of architecture, we are not engineers, we are like architects, but using this, not developing, but using this for like architectural design problems, and then it starts to be like reviewed. And the other thing, like on the other side, when we send it to an engineering journal, for example, to publish, and they said there is no novelty in it, because the novelty they need is in the algorithm, because we are using an algorithm. It's like, imagine that there's a, let's say, the computer software, let's say there's Revit, or like ArchiCAD that makes like wind simulation, and you do the wind simulation and try to make it publish, but there's no novelty in it. It's the opposite case. So and they were thinking that we are simply using the tool for case study, and for the engineers there were no values for it. So there was this kind of conflict, but I think at the end we solved it. But the thing is, these things already become old. They are not current anymore, because now the fix-to-fix algorithm is developed. There are like other algorithms, like GPT is also improved. It also gives like new models. Also gives image data. When you write the text, you got image data. Like the Midjourney, DALL-E, like Stable Diffusion. We have like other algorithms, also free, limited free, but still free. Yeah.
Very nice, thank you. Anyone with a question? Well, I would like to learn a little bit more about the Edu AI.
Okay.
I think it's quite interesting, and as far as I understood, it gives you the possibility to create a classroom layout from simply drawing colored areas instead of drawing the furniture and all.
Yeah, but the thing is,
that's the goal. What is the?
That's the goal, but the more is when you only give the border with door and the window, it makes the correct organization. So from the empty layout, it creates the zoning first. That's the first model. So when you run it, you get this, and you get this zone as an input, and you give it to second model, and you get the furnitures after it. So it's a two-cycle in it. That's the main difference than the other studies.
I see.
Yeah. So
So the basic input is just let's say the outline of the classroom.
Yeah, the outline.
The shape of the classroom.
Shape, but with a door and the window, because like you have to take the light from like left all the time, and the students shouldn't like face to window just not to get the backlight. Also, you cannot place the, let's say, like teacher's desk in front of the door. For example, you see like you cannot place it here, and the lockers are generally in our project. They are generally next to the door, like here. So and these like tables and like chairs, they are like just they are like moving towards the back wall. So here you can see when we change the angle, probably these things will get longer.
Very nice, amazing. I was surprised a little bit also with the training of a GPT.
Yeah.
I haven't like read your papers about it, but I'm always curious about how to train a model with custom data set, because the papers I read about GPT always use available online data sets, but you are using like a custom one, like from a university repository.
Yeah.
So how did you manage to get these tags and train the models like in an operative way?
Yeah. I know that like our colleagues that train the model get the info from like CummingCAD dataset once. CummingCAD database, but the CummingCAD database is organized as a database, so it was okay. So there was some ways to get it, you know. But here we have to follow everything like manually. That's one thing. So we have to download everything and like merge all data in a single, let's say like in a single document. We have to put some marks between each abstract, and then we count those like, let's say like marks to just divide them. It was mostly manual work for it, for data gathering. But about the training, it was a simple process. So it was asking for a text, like a bulk of text, a cumulative text. So we just give it to the model and get the trained model.
And
Yeah.
last for me.
Yeah. But I mean, if there would be a like engineer between us, you know, probably they won't do it in this way. Probably they would go to Science Direct or like, I don't know, like Elsevier and find a good repository to get this data. Because like even you say like cite this article, it gives you a metadata. So, and there is also some other works that are used for like content analysis. Those softwares are fed by some material in different formats. But here we didn't have that. So we, as a as an architect, we did a very labor-intensive work.
Very nice. We have a question from the YouTube channel, but I'm not seeing it. I can see other comments there. So please send it by. Okay, it's here. So there's an attendee called Julia.
Okay.
She's asking, in this study, did consider the kind of public that was going to use the space. But Julia, tell me, it's about the Edu AI, right? Could perhaps be used to think the layout for a specific group, like people with low vision or complete blind, or a classroom that has autistic students. So I think she's asking for accessibility.
Yeah.
These kinds of parameters could be considered in the study, or how could this be implemented?
Okay, I think it can be implemented if we have the data sets to train the model. For example, let me share again. For example, in here, as I showed here, like these are not drawn by us. You know, they were all in a website of a governmental agency or like ministry. So we simply took these. But if we have a collection of like, let's say, classroom layouts for like, let's say like disabled person, yeah, we could implement it too. But there is no such. But maybe it can be. I was thinking, can we make like two different inputs, for example? I mean, we could make like inputs, for example, one with door of like 1 meter and one with a 150 centimeter, and the door width, for example, here as an input would be create new solutions. For example, we could have like two data sets, like one for disabled person, different kind of like regulations and like let's say orientations and other things, and there's like the regular kind of classroom. So we could have like one data set, like mixed data set, but with different door widths, and according to the input, we could have the correct or like appropriate output. So it's an option. But for this case, since we don't have the classroom layouts, like many classroom layouts for like let's say disabled person, we have to design a lot of classrooms. And if we start designing it, it means that we are having a conflict with our idea of automatization. Okay, so like here is the thing is to automate this labor-intensive job. You know, like because every time you have to like copy 30 things, and that's what we are trying to avoid. But if we start to design many alternatives for like autistic people or like disabled people, so that just make a contradiction, you know, with the goals of the study. But it is possible, yeah.
Okay, Julia, thank you so much for your question, and thank you, Orkan, for the answer. I don't know if anyone would like to contribute. I have one last question. It's not actually a question, but I would like to ask Orkan something. Let's wait a bit. I saw that Lilian was typing there. Well, while we wait, I would like to give Orkan the opportunity to talk a little bit more about Metametric.
Oh,
because
okay.
I know that some of our students in Brazil know about Metametric, which is a streaming platform entirely in Turkish.
Yeah.
But they somehow are like learning from you guys there. So it would be great for you to present something about Metametric.
Yeah. Well, okay, let me do. So I can share my screen again. So, Metametric is a platform which is founded by Sema, me, and Kumsal. We are friends, colleagues, and like sometimes, you know, we were doing PhD with the same professors. Sema was my professor some time ago, and yeah. And in the pandemic time, we decided to create a synergy, you know, because like there were like a lot of students who were recently graduated, and they wanted to be involved in some activities, some workshops. They wanted to learn many things, but there were no clean, gathered and Turkish, let's say, repository, let's say. And then we decided to create this platform, and we started with some, let's say, workshops. And here we have, for example, workshop ekmeş. Ekmek means bread in Turkish. Ekmeş is like egg from ekmek, and mesh is the mesh, you know, in English. And we were using like grasshopper weaver bird, and what we did, we asked every student to make a bread, a real bread, and somehow manipulate, first molded it in grasshopper and manipulate it in grasshopper. For example, this is the bread, you know. So because everyone was at home that time, everyone was doing their own bread at home. Yeah, so we have this like forms, you know, like modeling forms and like manipulating forms. So we have like many. So there was like huge attendees, you know, like all of them like were using like different techniques with like very basic algorithms. So what basically they were doing, they were merging daily life things, you know, daily life objects with digital tools. Igor, you see us, right? You see
the
content, okay. So another one was dynamic design. Is called dynamic pattern. And here, you know, there is this traditional lace lace works, and we asked them to create a shape rule and create this pattern again, and give these shape rules to the second person. So this is the first person that makes this analysis, and it gives it to second person, and second person coding it in Grasshopper and creating this kind of 3D shapes with kangaroo. And here you see there's a lot of demystifying jokes, they try to explain things. And this is also about algorithmic thinking and algorithmic modeling, of course. And we have crazy number of attending person again. So I'm just showing it to give you some idea. This is one of my favorites. Papka means it's like shapka is the cap, the hat. And here it was a hat workshop. So what they did, they create a surface with loft command, only loft command from few surfaces, few lines, and we teach them unfolding algorithm that they can unfold this form and fold again to create the hat. For example, this is the curvy shape, but this is the folded and unfolded version of it. And there was for example, you can do this form with 3 lines and 1 loft surface. Loft command. This is another hat. And the nice thing is also they make this kind of photo montage, They think for example, this one is from Harry Potter kind of thing, Here there's a folded one. They are all use paper, regular paper. From elements they rebuilt these things. And oh, I don't have the content here. Okay. Yeah, and what else? Normally everyone has an idea, but there is no place to publish it. Because if you are not an expert, no one asks for your article or your blog post. So here there were some blog posts, written by students, and many things prepared by not only from our students but from general audience. And also we had some videos. Maybe it's better to show from YouTube. We start having weekly guests who talk about design, art, and technology. And we continue those meetings since we started. So we are having the 137 guests this week. The thing is, all of them are in Turkish, but there is a huge amount of let's say knowledge there. We also have videos that we show. We have how to use DALL-E, machine learning, artificial intelligence applications design. This is with Grasshopper and digital fabrication. It's a series. There is how to use Midjourney, how to use Autodesk, 3D Max, basic exercises with Rhino. I don't know, terrain modeling, Lunchbox, and many things. And the thing is, all of them are in Turkish, and all of them are done like voluntarily, so there is no budget, you know. Mathematics makes like zero money. So yeah, but we like it, you know, and our intention is to have it like alive, and we have like 2,000, almost 3,000 subscribers, you know, but we don't have any like advertisement, nothing. Also, yeah, that's our platform. We are trying to make it sustainable.
Very nice, Orkan. Even me published in mathematics. Orkan kindly translated a chapter of the PhD thesis to Turkish. So it was quite an opportunity, and thank you so much, Orkan, for the presentation, for sharing with us your time. It was like very enlightening, and hope to establish these links between our universities and maybe contribute again in other opportunities.
For sure. Yeah, I mean, I'm at Istanbul Technical University now. It's a huge university with 5 departments. I mean, only the architecture faculty has 5 departments. We have architecture, interior architecture, landscape architecture, urban planning, and industrial design. So there's 5 departments only in our faculty, and like thousands of students. So we are always open to new contributions. You know, like we have like a lot of students for workshops. The thing is, sometimes it's difficult to travel, you know, these days. Yeah, so that's one issue. You know, we don't have any like excursion plans like for to go like other countries. Their only option is to go like Erasmus, for example, and maybe it can be an option for like graduates maybe who make their own individual studies.
Nice. Okay, so if there's no other question, the other doesn't want to contribute, I think we can close the session for today.
Okay. Thank you very much. Also nice to meet you, Professor.
So thank you again. Thank you, Igor. Thank you, Orkan, for your contribution. Let's keep in touch. Let's
sure.
Start something from here.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, so have a good evening, right? No? Morning.
It's morning.
Okay.
Brazil, it's morning.
It's morning. Sorry. Okay. So see you then.
See you.
Bye.
Thank you so much. Leandro, de novo, depois aqui da sessão, né, acho que a gente pode voltar a falar em português, se o pessoal se sentir mais à vontade de trazer alguma questão ou qualquer explicação que tenha ficado difícil entender no inglês ou alguma coisa assim, estamos à disposição.
O Gabriel tem uma
pergunta, uma curiosidade boa.
Dá para ouvir?
Tá sim.
Tudo bom, Igor? Um prazer falar com você. Na verdade, assim, eu até peço desculpa se a minha pergunta for um pouco, talvez, ingênua, assim, mas como essa questão de inteligência artificial é meio novo para mim, eu também não sei se você, eventualmente, não saberia dizer. Eu fiquei só com uma curiosidade como, né, usuário de software, né, AutoCAD, SketchUp, essas coisas todas. Pelo que eu entendi, essa pesquisa que o Orkan mostrou, ele parte de uma imagem, no formato de imagem da sala, e a inteligência artificial interpreta isso e traz uma outra solução também em formato de imagem. Como que funciona, não sei, uma espécie de interoperabilidade disso, no sentido de, sei lá, exportar em algum outro arquivo? Acho que você vai me entender. Quando eu olho para aquela planta, eu falo, beleza, isso é só uma imagem? Porque ela não tem a compreensão do que são linhas, polilinhas e tudo mais. E tem algum caminho assim, de exportação? Ou então, talvez, se eu trocar o input de uma imagem, colocar um input de um arquivo de software, ele entrega na outra ponta um arquivo de software? Não sei, é uma curiosidade assim, bem boa, mas que ficou aqui na minha cabeça. Não sei como
Não,
isso
não é nada
funciona.
ingênuo. não é nada ingênua, eu acho que é uma pergunta que procede muito, porque há toda uma tentativa de transformar as imagens, os pixels, em modelos 3D. Essa é uma pesquisa que está sendo desenvolvida já há alguns anos. Eu tenho algumas bases aí que oferecem algum conhecimento disso já desde 2017. E a essência disso é o que eu quero apresentar para vocês, né? Por quê? Essa linha de pesquisa da inteligência artificial, que se conhece como visão computacional, né, ela realmente só oferece a possibilidade de trabalhar com pixels, certo? Então, é o reconhecimento desses pixels na organização da imagem que é possível a máquina reconhecer padrões, gerar essas pixel to pixel, né, que é essa ideia de uma imagem traduzida numa outra imagem, né? Há um estudo muito fundamental para essa linha de pesquisa, que é de um teórico chamado Stanislas. Eu vou escrever aqui no chat, porque ele é assim, eu não estou com o chat aberto aqui, mas eu coloco lá no grupo, não sei se você está participando lá no grupo. Mas o Stanislas, se eu não me engano, é um arquiteto francês que fez uma tese de doutorado em Harvard em 2019, quando ele defendeu, e ele desenvolveu junto com a NVIDIA, que é essa empresa, né, de placas de vídeo, né, um trabalho que se chama ArcGAN. Esse ArcGAN, ele traz a possibilidade de você gerar plantas baixas a partir de manipulações simples da imagem, né? E você ter a possibilidade de gerar layouts dos mais diversos a partir só de inputs gráficos, né? Então, talvez essa linha de pesquisa da visão computacional seja a mais extensa no momento, né? Tem essa outra que é a Natural Language Processing, que é o que o ChatGPT faz, né? Que trabalha daí com textos, né? Não são imagens. E tem uma vertente, eu acho que talvez mais contemporânea, assim, mais nova, que começa a fazer essa tradução das massas gráficas para modelos tridimensionais. O estudo que eu venho desenvolvendo, que está sendo, inclusive, avaliado aí na conferência europeia e tal, torcer para que ele seja aprovado, é justamente de pegar uma imagem e transformar isso num modelo BIM, né? Então, a partir do reconhecimento de padrões de uma planta baixa, você gera uma informação geométrica que, pela palavra que você utilizou aí, interoperabilidade, é mandada lá para o Grasshopper como um input que gera um modelo BIM diretamente a partir de uma imagem. É uma contribuição, porque a pesquisa que eu falei desde 2017, ela tem esse intento de gerar um modelo 3D a partir de uma imagem, mas até então ninguém tinha encontrado assim, um caminho para trabalhar com um BIM, né? Então há um processo de codificação, há um processo de entender esses padrões por uma outra tecnologia que o Orkan não apresentou, que é o Object Detection, né? que é também da mesma linha do Pix-to-Pix, né? Vamos dizer assim, mas que trabalha de uma outra maneira, que ela gera reconhecimento assim, de qualquer coisa, de uma pessoa andando na rua, então para monitoramento de segurança de uma câmera. Então a câmera pode ser imbuída desse sistema de Object Detection e reconhecer quantas pessoas estão passando na rua, etc. Inclusive tem um dos participantes aqui que tem essa proposta, que conversou comigo paralelamente e trouxe assim, essa ideia de eventualmente criar um sistema que pudesse fazer esse tipo de contagem. Achei excelente a ideia e essa tecnologia, né, de Object Detection é uma das técnicas que eu quero apresentar para vocês. Eu acho que a partir dela é possível gerar muitas outras coisas, inclusive essa transformação do modelo 3D, da imagem, né, do pixel, para o modelo 3D.
Legal.
Agora, conforme eu apresentei, o próprio José Pedro, não sei se você estava no momento que ele apresentou, existem já softwares de modelagem tridimensional com a inteligência artificial integrada. Daí já é um outro processo, né? que automatiza outras tarefas, que vai em busca de outras resoluções, né? Eu tenho aprendido sobre esse software também recentemente, porque esse estudo de inteligência artificial, para mim, é uma grande novidade, né? Eu vim aqui para Portugal para estudar sobre robótica, e por uma série de questões eu acabei parando na inteligência artificial. Então isso tudo está muito recente, apesar dessas técnicas já serem aplicadas assim, né, em corporações ou escritórios grandes, etc. Mas isso tudo eu acho que é mesmo muito recente, né? E eu creio que esses softwares, eles até sejam simples de serem utilizados, né? Eu falei aqui, o José Pedro falou do Space Maker, teve uma colega no grupo que falou de um outro aplicativo, deixa eu resgatar aqui, que eu acho que é Form Solver, que ela colocou lá, a Aline colocou no grupo. O Grasshopper tem já uma machine learning que é por meio do Lunchbox, né? Então é possível gerar zoneamentos, é possível gerar layouts usando essa tecnologia, né? Então, quer dizer, há uma tendência de integração da inteligência artificial nos softwares 3D. Né? Então, o que a gente consegue visualizar é que talvez no futuro breve aí, o ArchiCAD, o Revit vão começar a ter esses plugins, né? Então, o que vai facilitar uma modelagem, que vai otimizar o processo de modelagem, etc. Entende? Então, esse campo da machine learning, da inteligência artificial, é muito vasto. E é um campo que tem assim, uma defasagem muito rápida, igual o Orkan falou. Né? Essas técnicas que ele apresentou, elas já são meio ultrapassadas, vamos dizer assim. Né? Então, a coisa toda está num processo extremamente rápido, né? E eu acho que assim, a oportunidade de trazer esse conhecimento foi para mim um pouco imediata, né? De poder compartilhar isso, de poder trazer isso para vocês, mesmo que eu não seja um super especialista na área, porque eu acho que o meu processo, apesar de eu já ter alguma experiência na área, né, já ter feito doutorado sobre parametrização e etc., me dê, sei lá, alguma habilidade a mais, mas assim, especificamente dentro da área de inteligência artificial, eu estou fazendo uma pesquisa de 1 ano, né? Então, quer dizer, e investigando assim, tutoriais na internet, porque não tem alguma pessoa que, sabe, me balize nisso, não tem uma metodologia implantada nas universidades que possam, sabe, me ensinar essas coisas. Então, eu acho que é uma habilidade que qualquer um pode ter, né? Qualquer um aí pode desenvolver isso. É claro que tem várias dificuldades, vários contratempos. Eu passei por várias dificuldades, né? Então, achei assim, oportuno falar isso tudo, assim, mesmo que eu não tenha um conhecimento completo disso, para que a gente já possa ir construindo essas coisas, mesmo que seja assim, meio aos atropelos, entende? Então, o intuito assim, do workshop é poder trazer esse conhecimento mesmo o mais rápido possível para que a gente possa não perder essa onda, assim, vamos dizer, né? Não perder esse fluxo aí de sei lá, de estudo sobre essa linha de pesquisa. Eu acho que eu consegui responder assim meio parcialmente,
sim,
mas
totalmente.
deu para clarear alguma coisa, né?
Totalmente.
Estou pensando aqui, Igor, pegando primeiro o que você falou por último, né? Eu acho que nunca é precipitado, né? Porque a gente não tem conhecimento completo, nunca vai ter, né? Nós, como pesquisadores, a gente vai ter sempre como massa de trabalho aquilo que é incompleto, que é ainda não totalmente conhecido, senão não haveria que investigar, né? Então, eu acho que é mais do que apropriado, né, que você traga algo que você admite que é incompleto. Meu conhecimento é incompleto, apesar do cabelo estar caindo, né? Então, assim, nunca vai ser completo, né? Eu espero que não. No dia que for completo, não tem mais o que fazer, né? Melhor pendurar a chuteira e vestir o pijaminha e ficar balançando na cadeira. né? Mas, então, eu fiquei pensando também nessa questão que o Gabriel levantou, né? É uma questão muito importante, como você disse, é uma questão antiga, né? Como fazer a transição de arquivos tipo raster, né? Como eles eram chamados antigamente, né? De pixels, de imagens para vetorial. Né? Isso é um problema razoavelmente antigo. E eu fiquei pensando também que já existem tecnologias que trabalham com uma problemática semelhante. Se você pega um scanner 3D, o scanner ele gera um mapa de pontos, não é? Que não é exatamente o que o arquiteto precisa. O arquiteto precisa do vetorial. E existem técnicas de transformar mapa de pontos em arquivos vetoriais, né? Arquivos que começam com ponto, reta, curva, gerando planos sólidos e assim por diante, né? Que são o que a gente precisa para trabalhar, né? Eu imagino que uma coisa tem a ver com a outra, né? Que é um processo muito semelhante, onde você está pegando um conjunto de dados que são discretos, né? Que representam um espaço por pequenas unidades e transformando eles em fórmulas matemáticas, né? Que é exatamente a transição da imagem para o vetorial, né? Então acho que é uma questão muito importante, né? Chegar lá na ponta com alguma forma de vetorial. É uma questão de pesquisa. Né? Eu não tenho resposta para tudo, nem você, nem... Eu acho que é bom que não estejamos nunca, porque senão a gente vai ter que ficar desempregado, né?
Exatamente. Não, isso é um aprendizado que eu tive muito com você, né, na época do doutorado, né? A gente sempre entra numas crises, né, de como que está a nossa pesquisa, o que que a gente pode contribuir, né? E quando você me falava isso, assim, sempre dava aquela luz no fim do túnel de falar, não, mas tem alguma coisa aqui que, né, mesmo que não esteja assim completamente sedimentada, é capaz de contribuir, é capaz de trazer algum conhecimento novo, né? E eu acho que é uma postura que a gente deve manter aqui no workshop, né? A gente está todo mundo aprendendo com todo mundo. Se vocês puderem trazer o conhecimento de vocês, quem já tiver aí alguma experiência na área, etc., ou quem tiver alguma ideia, isso tudo vai ser assim uma complementação, né? Eu acho que é muito importante, mais do que a gente sentar aqui e ficar falando coisas para vocês, a gente poder trocar, né? Então, é isso, assim, quando eu vi lá que a gente estava com mais de 110 mil inscritos e tanta gente demonstrando interesse, né? Eu acho que é porque realmente tem alguma coisa aí que é boa, né? Que é positiva, assim, para arquitetura, para nossa profissão, para otimizar os nossos meios de trabalho, né? Apesar de toda a polêmica que a inteligência artificial sugere, né? E a gente fica sempre meio receoso, assim, de trazer uma tecnologia que eventualmente daqui a pouco, amanhã, vai ser, sei lá, mal vista, né? Igual isso que eu falei ali no início do chat GPT, está sendo proibido em alguns países. Mas, por outro lado, a nossa tendência é utilizar isso em benefício mesmo da profissão, né? De melhorar os métodos de trabalho, de otimizar os nossos processos, né? Ontem mesmo teve uma palestra aqui na faculdade sobre do Randy Deutsch, que é um americano de Chicago, e ele falou isso assim com muita clareza, né? Um arquiteto de um escritório que, sei lá, quando tinha lá os seus 20 anos, passava semanas enfurnado no escritório tentando resolver uma planta baixa e que o cliente no final iria modificar completamente porque aquela documentação toda produzida era só para aprovação do projeto, né? Quando a obra estava feita, o cliente ia lá e derrubava todas as paredes que ele projetou, né? E isso dificultou a vida familiar dele, etc. Né? E ele dizendo que se ele tivesse essas tecnologias à mão, ele teria uma vida muito mais saudável, muito mais, né? Muito mais, sei lá, facilitada, vamos dizer assim. Né? Então, uma vida profissional, né, que me refiro. Então, não sei, eu eu tenho a tendência, a Cristina na última aula, ela até falou uma coisa assim, né? A gente precisa, eu acho que a visão de vocês é uma visão positiva, né? Uma visão assim, não era essa palavra, mas enfim, uma visão otimista da utilização disso tudo, né? Eu acho que a gente tem que ter um certo otimismo, sim, não dá para também acreditar em tudo da tecnologia, né, que vai resolver tudo. Mas se a gente ter assim, uma visão positiva e tender para um tipo de trabalho que seja ético, que não vá, né, ferir outras pessoas, etc., eu acho que a gente tem coisas a contribuir, sim, enfim. Não sei se também, assim, eu tenho uma dificuldade em ser porta-voz de tecnologia, sabe? Eu não acho que a gente tem que ser porta-voz dessas tecnologias, mas eu acho que a gente tem que saber usá-las e, eventualmente, saber usá-las, assim, criticamente mesmo, né? Então, acho que é por aí, assim, a ideia desses encontros, dessas trocas todas, eu acho que é para começar a estabelecer alguns vínculos que ainda, eventualmente, não fazem parte da nossa rotina de trabalho, né? E é isso, acho que a gente pode terminar, não é, Leandro? O que você acha?
Isso. Se não tiver mais nenhuma pergunta, acho que aqui na sala não. Eu não sei aí na sala virtual, né, pessoal?
Por aqui também eu acho que não está aparecendo mais nada.
Então, Igor, mais uma vez, muito obrigado. Né? Vamos continuar a trabalhar para a próxima sessão, onde você vai fazer a sua apresentação. Né?
Isso. Semana que vem eu faço a minha apresentação, já introduzo o primeiro exercício, a gente já começa assim uma parte mais prática, né? Ao invés de ficar só nas conversas aqui, a gente já entra já num trabalho e vamos distribuir tarefas e propor aí algumas questões para que vocês mesmos possam já começar a mexer com essas ferramentas.
Então, obrigado pela presença de todos. A gente vai então encerrando por aqui. Tá? Primeiro vou encerrar a transmissão pelo. Se eu achar o meu mouse. Voltou.